Yeah, yeah.
We are the epitome of Black female love.
It's easy for us as Black women to hold up the banner and the call for everyone else. But again, who holds up the banner and the calls for us? What role does the church play in all of this stuff?
Is that we as a Black church are perpetuating the same behavior as a patriarchal evangelicals have been doing.
Right. And guess
church, but it's the sisters in the congregation.
But it's a lot of times it is the Black women who bring us down more, or push or try to silence our voices more in the Black church.
Hey, my sisters. Hello, hello, and hello.
Hello and hello and
Hello, 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 hello.
It is so good to see you all. It's good to be back. Our viewing audience, come on, come on, come on. Let us know that you are here. We've missed you these last couple of weeks, but we're also glad to have had a break and the time to be able to come back. Hello, Sharon Mitchell from Michigan and Hannah Hooks from Giddings, Texas. Where is Giddings, Texas?
Hey, Reverend Hooks, how you doing? Over by San Antonio, Austin area.
Oh, wow. Okay. Don't think I've seen that area yet. All right. Dr. Shazetta Thompson Hill. Hello, hello, and hello. So before we jump into our show on today, kind of let's just check in.
See the note? Burns, did you see the note? No, ma'am.
So let's start with you, Dr. Wallace. Where are you? You are not on the East Coast, are you?
No, I am not. And you can probably tell in the slur in my voice, I am exhausted. I am in San Jose, San Jose, California. Lord, I don't know why. Y'all talking about Giddings, Texas. San Jose, California. It's beautiful out here, but I am really ready to go home.
Oh, wow. Well,
but it's been I got to see friends and family, and it's been awesome time. Really awesome.
Okay. Wonderful. Dr. Chalice Bradford, how about you?
It is well in the Big D. I'm glad to be in Dallas. I am glad to be at my own house in my own bed. How about that?
Oh, wow. Wonderful. Our co-host, Dr. Sarita, is traveling. She just boarded a plane, and so we do ask that you all keep her in your prayers. Her travel got interrupted. She thought some things got changed around, and so y'all keep her in your prayers, and all that on that plane with her, and all airplanes while she's up and traveling. Giddings is 50 miles west of Austin. All right, learn me something today, Hooks. Learn me something. So thank you, Marjorie Scott, McKinney, Texas. Doris Thorne, hello. So good to have you here. You all here with us. Like, tag, and share. We're going to have a little fun in our coming back, which is also the other part that it really, is kind of like what we call the Betty Downer with Wright not being with us on today. But it's good. I'm glad to be back. Most of you all know, those of you who don't been on this campaign trail, and Saturday was the conclusion, and so I was in Phoenix on one day, and then on the East Coast on the same day. And so, guess what? One day I woke up and I thought it was a total another day. I got through half the day and realized that I had skipped a whole day. And so it's been really awesome on my end of just being able to travel both for missions work and in regard to the denomination that I'm in. And so we're just 18 days now away from the opening of our general conference in Cincinnati, Ohio. So do ask, you all keep my denomination lifted up, keep me lifted up as I've offered myself before my people. And so it's just a whole lot going on in all of our lives, right? Just a
Yeah.
whole lot.
Is it
And
this?
so And so we thank our viewers let's see. I see Alexandra, Louisiana. All right. Thank you for letting us know that you're here. Yvonne Williams, hello. Rosa Simpson, yes, we thank God for you being one of our loyal viewers. Bridget Miller from Cedar Hill. All right, all right. Come on, come on, come on. Thank you, Reverend Simpson. Keep the prayers coming for me. And so, you all, we're going to spend the first half of our show talking about love and marriage, love and marriage. When we took our 2-week break, it was because one of our couples that were here, that they were celebrating 50 years of marriage. All right. And that's Dr. Wallace. We have Dr. Wright, who was so excited about being a part, and then the airlines messed it up. She's been married for 49 years, 49 years. And Dr. Bradford celebrated 27 years. So we have two who just celebrated their anniversaries, one of 50 and one of 29. And you all know the timely wisdom, right? And so I get to interview my co-host today for the first half of the show. All right, send the heart, send the heart, send the heart, send the heart, send the heart buttons. All right, I get to interview them. All right, as we talk about love and marriage. So, ladies, the first question I have to ask you before we get into the marriage question, right? What do you say to ladies, both young and old, who desire to get married? Let's start there.
Well, if you do it the way I did it, you get married young and poor, and you both grow. You grow together. So since neither one of us had anything when we got married, we were high school sweethearts, and uh, we've still been together, and it's been a good ride. It's been a good ride.
Wow, that's good, Wallace. I would say the same thing, but expectations. We put so many expectations on someone else, but we fail to put them on ourselves. As we were young when we got married as well, but we began to look in the mirror. Okay, what is it that I want in me? And then what is it that I want in you? So we began to talk to each other like that. Okay, so well, I'm tired. So what are you going to do when I'm tired? And ask questions, like dumb questions like that. But dating has to be singular and not plural. So what do I mean by that? I go into it, well, when my husband and I started dating, we just started dating just, hey, how you doing? Just friends. We didn't expect to be married. We didn't expect to just be one. We just had fun. Let's go out and have a good time. Let's strengthen ourselves. We just had fun. We didn't take ourselves too seriously initially. No.
Bradford, I have to agree with you that you really do have to look at the person in the mirror. Michael Jackson has a song that say looking at the man in the mirror. And that the only person that you can change is the one that's looking back at you.
That's right.
So that for me, I like you, I had to look at myself and recognize that, some days I had it together and some days I did not. And it's okay. It's okay.
So you know what, Wallace, when I think about Burns dating, we didn't do a whole lot of dating. And when we first met, well, we used to work together, right? I was in HR. My husband was in the in the yard, if I guess they would call it at that time. And we didn't like each other. And I can be fully transparent here. And I thought he thought I was bougie. And I thought he was stuck up, I guess you would. Wait a minute.
Let the truth, let the church say amen. Hey, I join you with bougie though, Brett.
So that's what we doing, Bert.
I join you. It's
That's
okay.
what we doing, Bert.
It's all right. It's all right.
And what you know what I'm began to talk. We were standing, getting ready to leave for the day. And he said, "You want to go somewhere?" I was like, "Sure." And shut up, Chriselle. We were standing together, and he said, "Well, you want to go somewhere?" And I said, "Well, sure." I think we just went to get some ice cream or something, and the rest is history. We were inseparable at that time, and I thought, opposites attract. Absolutely, McDaniel. Opposites attract, and I am grateful that I didn't say no that day. I said yes, and we were able to move forward. I thought, man, all right. So I guess okay, yes, and I even say that now today. Reverend Simpson, yeah, probably, but I didn't. I wasn't checking him out.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? I have to own that. I can own that because I made sure I had the hot pants on. I was size 8, had big, pretty legs, and I was showing them off. Okay. Ain't no shame in my game. But I was looking at him too. So yes, there was some secret checking folk out. Absolutely.
So let me ask you all this, and those of you all who are just joining us, the first half of our show, we're talking about love and marriage. Dr. Brenda Perry Wallace has just celebrated 50 years of marriage, and Dr. Bradford just celebrated 27 years. Dr. Wright, who could not be with us on today, was very excited, has been married for 49 years. So we're talking about love and marriage, right? And so the first question that they were asking, I get to interview my co-host today. And so the first question I asked them was, what would you say, right, to young, to ladies, not going to say young, to ladies who desire, right, to be married? Do ask that you all, just like we do with our regular guests, any questions you have for them, put them in the chat. So let me ask you this. You've been married for 50 years. You've been married for 27 years. Do you still love your husbands, and why?
Wow. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be there if I didn't feel love.
Well, say it again. Yeah. I think the why is because he is still himself. Mm-hmm. We've grown together, and his patience, his calmness, his grounding, it is just wonderful because I'm so free. And when we met, I've always been a traveler. I've always traveled with my jobs. I've always gone, and he that's not who he is. Baby, go on. I'll send some money with you. Hallelujah. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe I am a little bougie, but anyway. He always, whenever it's time for us to go together, we'll go together. But he's my grounding solace.
I again, Bradford, I have to join you. I think I love my husband more because of his own security. Yeah, he is secure within himself. And I've tried climbing the corporate ladder. I traveled with telephone company like you, and never had a moment of repercussions because of that. Didn't It was our money. It wasn't just my money. It was our money, and his was mine too. So
Here's mine.
uh-huh. Ours. Absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, I
Okay.
mean, people are so grounded, like you're saying, is they know who they are, and our success does not shatter who they are.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
So okay. So let me ask you all this and see. I know y'all used to be in the calls. I asked the questions. All right. Okay. Today. All right. Now. Okay, but listen. So this individual asked, "Were you in ministry before marriage?" And because I kind of know the answer to this question, I'm going to add to this question. Then, what was it like in that process of your answering your call to ministry, being married?
Oh, thank you, Dr. Burns, and thank you for the question from our viewing
Jackson.
audience, Jackson, Reverend Jackson. No, I was not in ministry before I got married. I was in the streets um, before I got married. We were both heathens. However, my husband saw me struggling with my call to
Mhm.
ministry. He saw that. And when I actually verbalized to him, honey, I really think the Lord is calling me to ministry. And what he said to me has been with me forever. And that is, honey, ain't but one answer. If God is calling, ain't but one answer. So I
Mhm.
think that has been a grounding for us, that he recognized that when God is the ultimate caller, not me. So when he recognized that, and I answered my call, I could answer my call in peace. Um,
Mm.
I didn't have, and really and honestly, I really was hoping he would say, "God don't call women." That's what I was hoping he would say. But he threw me a loop when he said, "Ain't but one answer when God calls," and I'm like, "Shoot, that wasn't what I said." But y'all
Did you
know
see the
what I
lips?
said.
Did you see the
Uh-huh,
lips burn?
uh-huh. I know what I said. But it was that's how I knew that he really was. That was the second time I knew he was the man for me. Um,
Wow. Wow. Okay.
because our marriage started out, we were raising my siblings, so
Wow.
he was willing to work and forego his college education until my baby sister went off to college. So
Wow. 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 What about you, Brad?
So I'm going to put it in two parts, right? When I was called in ministry, I was already teaching Bible study. I was already directing the choir, singing in the choir, already traveling with my pastor, my father in ministry. I was doing a lot of that. And I was not thinking about preaching, being a preacher. It's like, okay, I'm good where I am.
mhm.
And I began to have this, I cried a lot. I was emotional.
Oh
I didn't
yeah,
understand, what is this I'm feeling. I talked to everybody else except for my husband.
wow.
I'm being
Mm.
transparent. And my husband was waiting for me. Terry was waiting. And then when I began to talk to him about it, I said, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to move. He said, well, if the Lord called you, the Lord called you. And I said, well, what am I gonna do? He said, well, let's do it together. We're gonna work this out. So I hadn't told my pastor, my father in ministry yet. And so at that point, I told my pastor, and he said at that time, no, God don't
Which,
call
which was a Baptist preacher.
me.
You came up in
That time,
okay.
thank you.
Okay.
That time
Hmm.
it was a Baptist preacher. And I thought, okay. So 2 years go by, and Terry and I were still moving, we're still flowing. And long story short, my father in ministry said, I know God has called her. Okay, blah, blah, blah. My husband said, I told you. All we
Wow.
had to do was wait. All right,
Wow.
that's preaching. Now here comes pastoring. I'm AME at this moment. And all of a sudden, I'm ordained. I'm reobligated in the AME church. I was already ordained in Baptist church, reobligated in the AME church. And here I go. Then I'm ordained as an IT elder. Friday, I'm ordained. Saturday, I am appointed to a church to pastor. And Sunday, I mounted the pulpit. Whirlwind. Then I call my husband. I tell my husband, babe, he was at work. I'm appointed to pastor a church in Kaufman. He said, what? Don't they talk to me first? So the response was different than it was when I was preaching. But it wasn't different. But he said, I'll meet you there. Let's go.
Wow.
And I said, no, they don't talk to everybody. They just tell the pastor, the preacher, where they're going. He said, well, let's go. When we got there, we circled the church in prayer. When we got in the church, he said, well, let's take a circle. All of us get in the circle, and we're going to pray that the Lord moves in this church.
Wow.
Was still there. The answer was different.
Wow, that's powerful. Now, to my co-host, I have to say, that because we do have a guest, and we have a lot of questions that are still coming your way, and our time is running short, but we got to get these questions in. All right. Okay. And so this question comes: what have you learned to appreciate about your spouse that you did not know when you were first married?
I could say his patience.
Ooh, Lord. Ooh, that is so true. Yeah. And patience with me.
Yes, that is my point right there. Patience, because I am free, because I have a lot going on, and always have had a lot going on. He just sits there and just waits. He said, "You ready? Mm-hmm. All right, let's go." And I didn't know that I needed that in my life. Mm. But that's what I needed, was some patience. I needed patience with me and all of the things that I have going on in my life.
Yeah. My husband is a jock. Still is, watches. He can watch golf, and I don't know who in the world can watch golf on TV. But he watches golf. He watches tennis, and sometimes he's watching tennis, basketball, and baseball all at the same time. Yeah. But I think similar to you, Bradford, his patience, but also he was a steadiness for me.
Yes,
I can be all over the place, girl. And I want to enjoy everything. If any of you know anything about the 7 on the Enneagram, I'm a 7, and I want fun. My husband, on the other hand, is a 9, who is the peacemaker. So if you know anything about the Enneagram, which I absolutely love, psychological and spiritual psychology, I just love it. It is that opposite attracts. That I got a book, and sometimes in our marriage, I've had to read a book to be in the same room as he's watching these sports. And they would laugh at my family laughs at me that I would take a book to a basketball game with my grandson. Well, I don't watch it. I don't read it the whole time, but there's halftime, there's quarter time, there's timeouts. I can get a couple of paragraphs in between time. So we're very different in that. So yes,
that steadiness that you talked about. Yes, Lord, because I had so many offers. Okay, I can go to San Antonio. Okay, I can go to Michigan. Oh, I said, no, we can do all that right here. And I was like, huh? So yes, thank God for that. But my husband and I both play basketball.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So here's this next question. It says, please advise regarding keeping the fire burning after years of marriage. How do you not let the physical aspect of your marriage fall to the wayside in light of children, careers, and life in general?
You want to go first?
Just do it.
Yeah. The other part for me, though, and just
you said it so fast, Bradford, I'm not certain they heard it. Okay. All right. So say it again.
You got jokes. I just believe just do it, because if you go too long without, then it will, the fire that is. I know y'all think about other stuff, but the fire, romance, and just walking in the park, just walking around the corner, in the yard together. What do you think about watering the lawn? All of that is romance. And we all have different languages. Okay, what do I need to do here? I don't know anything about this. Help me do this, honey. That's a love language, because something that he knows and you don't know about, and you ask him about it, man, it brings something, a fire within him. It's like, ooh, okay, I like that. Let's do this. And it doesn't always have to be physical, but there always has to be a touch, emotional touch, if that makes sense.
I think also what was helpful for us is that I did travel, because a week can make the heart grow fonder.
Yeah.
And I was always happy to see him when I got home, and he was happy to see me.
That's
so
right.
I think both of us having something we enjoy.
Yeah.
He, like I said, he's a jock. He enjoyed that. I'm a nerd. And so I was just going school, and if I would be in school now, if these student loans weren't still out there. But he has something he enjoyed. I have something I enjoy. I love being with my girlfriends. He likes being with them deacons in the church. So we had times when we did things together, but we also had times when we did things that we enjoyed apart.
Yeah. Well, I think that's important. We cannot lose ourselves in the marriage. I would be suffocated if I tried to be somebody else. I can't do it. I have to be who I am, who God has called me to be, and I'll have to let you be who you are, and keep on moving.
Somebody took us to the basketball game. I love it.
Don't start.
So let me ask you this question, and going back to kind of the first question I asked you all, and viewing audience, if you've got any other questions you want to squeeze in, squeeze them in there before we bring our guest up for today. It says, but what are some old school cliches around dating and marriage that should be thrown out the window with the bathwater?
Oh, girl, it got to be 50-50. Boo. No.
100.
No.
It's 150, 150.
No, and sometimes it's 20, sometimes it's 80, sometimes it's 0, and the other one is 100. There has to be balance. And now we always talk about balance, or even priorities, if you will. When we talk about 50-50, like, no. We don't understand what that really means. We always have to put forth everything, and some days we may not have 100% to put in, or even 50% to put in. Just do something.
And you know what else, Bradford and Burns? I think there is this cliche that don't let the sun go down on your anger, or be mad, or whatever it says. But there are some days that it takes me 2 or 3 days to get over my anger.
Tell the truth.
I can't say that just because when it happens, I'm just gonna be okay in the next moment. No. And I thank God that my husband gives me the space to be mad longer than a night. You got to have some time to process your anger, and then look at how you participated in it. What or why are you angry? Because it takes me some time to see how it might have been my fault. It takes me some time to figure that out. I'm just gonna be honest. It's always plain and clear that I had.
Am I the culprit?
Did I start this?
It's not just us being mad. They get upset as well. But how do we? There has to be a good way to argue,
right?
And that's our communication, right? when we communicate, we may still argue, but hold on. Let's look at the issues here and let's do it right. Because I ain't got time to be doing all that and this. And I don't have time for all that. What you got? Because when we were younger, we would argue, go to bed, argue, and come back and argue again. But honey, ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah,
we don't have time for that now. Let's see what the issue is and let's move from it because life is too short to be dealing with that.
Okay.
I'll let you see Wallace.
I see one of our viewers has said, "I could be wrong?" Question mark.
Well, it is a question mark. I don't know if I'm really wrong. That's why I got What did I do? Did I say that?
No,
I didn't say that.
No. We have to make sure that we have. I guess my last words for advice or advice for young and old who are wanting to be married, whether it's your first, second, or third time. Be who you are, and not try to change them.
Ooh.
Because when you try to change them, it's not going to work out for you. But when we look in the mirror, my goodness, we begin to change who we are, not to fit their needs, but to fit God's glory. And that's for real. Honey, go ahead, Wallace.
Okay, all right. This last question, and then Wallace will introduce our guest. What romantic movie best describes your marriage?
Oh, wow. I can tell you the one that Terry likes, and we have to watch it 1,000 times. 1,000. I'm like, dang, can we watch something else?
Remember this recording. Somebody can just.
That's all right. I hope they show him. That's all right, because we're good. It's Titanic. I don't know if it describes our marriage, but that's his favorite movie. And because Terry is a romantic, he likes that movie because not the ending, of course, but how they became together and how they came together and loved on each other despite the odds, despite their differences. They still came together to love each other and strengthen each other.
Wow. Okay. The Titanic for the Bradford household. What about for the Wallace household? Which movie?
I'm still thinking because my husband is not that kind of romantic. He loves the romance in those cowboy movies.
Girl, that's Terry.
It's not a regular. When they run off, if they running together. That's he loves them cowboy movies. So it's not one particular movie that would describe us. We like a lot of stuff. It's just different.
Ernst, let me say this. Since I didn't answer the question properly, I want to say this. If I had to choose a movie that really describes us from beginning to now, prior to our getting married, I would say Love Jones. Because of the journey we had prior to being married. It was rocky. But because of our differences, is what made us a better mates.
Oh wow.
I agree with you there. Because we like different stuff. He likes cowboys and I like mysteries. I like fiction and period pieces. He likes shoot 'em ups and cops and robbers.
Yeah, you catch Terry on if he's watching TV, he's watching a Western.
Wow.
I'm trying to watch Westerns all day though.
All right. So
sports is not on.
So viewing audience, you know how we do this with our other guests. We say, if you've enjoyed our guest, the first half of this, put it in the chat. They can see it in the chat. Hit the heart buttons. If we need a part 2, put it in the chat. But I want to thank my co-host today for taking just a portion of this time on today in talking about love and marriage, love and marriage. So let them know, let them know, let them know how much you appreciate this. Dr. Wallace, now if we can shift gears for a moment, will
Yeah.
you introduce our guest for us on today?
I am elated, thrilled, and so happy to bring Dr. Maisha Handy to the program. She's a native of Chicago, Illinois. She has been an administrator, a professor, a pastor, an activist in the struggle for liberation. She began her journey of higher education at Lincoln University in Missouri. She got her bachelor's in criminal justice and criminology. She relocated to Atlanta and received her Master's of Divinity and the Doctor of Philosophy from Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. She spent 22 years employed at the ITC. She's a womanist and a liberationist that par excellence. And I tell you, she has been an AKA since 1987. Hallelujah. She has also is now taking the executive directorship of Jacqueline Grant Center for Black Women's Justice at the ITC upon the retirement of Dr. Jacqueline Grant. My sister has written several books and articles, and I'm not going to go through all of it, but she is a pastor, y'all. And all of that, she is a pastor of Rise and Afrocentric worshiping community of the Presbyterian USA Church. She's called Pastor K, Umi K, and we love her dearly. I love her work with young folks. She brought what's the guy's name? And she'll tell you. She brought the guy from oh God, I just slipped my mind. He just passed away and received Doctor of Ministry posthumously at the ITC. Is it Iron? It's I can't think of it. She'll tell us. She'll tell us. But thank you guys. Welcome, 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 welcome. Oh, ain't she pretty, y'all? Ain't she pretty? She's a musician too, y'all. Oh my God, y'all better hear her on the drums and on the organ.
Come on in the room.
Hello, everyone.
Hello there.
Hello. Hello.
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah.
Well, we always have the first question we have for all of our guests. I'm glad that you're here, Dr. Handy, but how are you doing in these COVID streets?
Whew. Leaning on God and the community like everybody else and making it the best way that we can in, I guess, what's now an endemic and instead of a pandemic. It's been challenging. It's been tough. It's been difficult. The isolation, the grief, trying to work and pastor and do everything that you're trying to do in the midst of it. I was the provost at ITC when the pandemic hit, and we had to migrate the entire institution to an online learning platform and engage faculty around online teaching and learning processes. And it was more than a notion. And then, of course, I had 7 deaths in my immediate family on last year, including my father last August, who ultimately succumbed to long hauler COVID. So it has been challenging, learned a lot, but still here. Y'all know a lot of pastors quit and a lot of churches closed. So I'm just grateful to still be here. But thank you for asking as we continue to navigate this together.
We know we had initially talked about Womanist Preaching, but talk to us about some of the stuff you do to connect with the young people in the community And what was the guy's name who got the doctorate posthumously?
Michael K. Williams.
And what was the show?
Michael Kenneth Williams. He's had quite a few. He was originally made famous on The Wire.
Yes.
Right?
The Wire.
Omar from The Wire. And when he was here in Atlanta and became a part of our church at Rise, he was filming Lovecraft Country, for which he was nominated for an Emmy.
Awesome.
Remarkable brother, a genuine spirit. And he would bring young people from the studio set with him to church. And, you know, just different friends. He brought Journey Smollett to church with him because they were on set together filming Lovecraft Country. And he had a passion for outreach. He really, really did. Michael wasn't just some film actor. He was out there in the streets, talking to people, walking with people. He had a show also on the Vice Channel, a couple of series where he was talking to folks who were living on, if you will, the underside of life, and really lifting their voices and helping us to understand the systemic realities that create the situations that people are trying to.
Wow.
And while he was here, we did some ministry to our houseless sisters and brothers downtown in Atlanta. So ashe, as we say to Michael Kenneth Williams.
Ashe, ashe. Call that spirit.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah,
I've always had a passion for youth ministry and young people. That's probably where I started out. You know, sometimes when you're in the church and you're young in ministry, you know, they automatically make you the youth minister, right? Because you can relate. So I always had these intersections between youth ministry, Christian education, and music. And so I kind of started out getting my feet wet, if you will, there. And while I was at Candler School of Theology, and quite a few years later, after receiving a PhD, community church, which was founded by myself, along with 7 other persons who were artists of various kinds, who were engaged in worship arts. Reverend Yanni Davis, known as the Peace Prayers and the hip hop pastor, graduate of Spelman College, was there. Pianists and organists were there to help form this community. RISE is spelled R-I-Z-E intentionally because of the documentary that came out in 2005 called RISE, which was a film about young people in South Central Los Angeles who developed their own style of dance forms. They were disenfranchised, if you will, young people growing up in poverty who couldn't afford, you know, ballet lessons right down the street on Hollywood Boulevard. And so they created, I argue, and you see it in the film, out of African retentions that were in them and out of the spirituality that was already in them, these dance forms. And so I thought that that was a powerful way of looking at where the church needed to be headed in relation to young people. Seeing that, you know, a lot of young people may not have grown up in the church, but there's a spirituality, right, that they are tapped into. And hip hop culture helped that come in. Now,
repeat that last part. You froze up on us. Hip hop did what?
I said hip hop is 46 years old.
They old.
Good and grown.
Wait a minute. You just said 46 years old.
Yes, yes, yes. At least I think I'm right on the number, 46 or 47. Yeah, in terms of, you know, when it's designated by scholars that it developed in Bronx, New York, here in the U.S. So you know, millennials are getting to be old people now. Generation Z is like, y'all old. Get off of TikTok with us.
Well, listen, there is a misnomer that hip hop does not have a theology. And I remember at the ITC talking with professors about the theology of Tupac Shakur.
Mm.
And so I think you've tapped into something, that there is a theology of hip hop. Can you share more about that with us?
Yes, yes. I love Tupac. We call his name from time to time at Rise as a part of our libation. He came out of a very powerful family, as many of us know. And so I do think that there is a theology. It's often not the theology that the normative church wants to hear. All right. Hip hop in its inception had a prophetic critique of the church. Y'all just tell me when I freeze up. I'm sorry.
Okay, Dr. Henry, if you could, we heard hip hop in and of itself had a prophetic. We didn't hear what came behind that.
Oh Lord, y'all forgive me. I live in the woods. Prophetic voice, prophetic voice, and Tupac was representative of that in many respects. One of my favorite interviews with Tupac is him critiquing what he saw as these mega churches in New York, where he was living. Tupac said, "What does God need a gold ceiling to talk to me for? We got churches out here that are big as city blocks, and it's folks out here living on the street, and this makes young people not want to come to church and not believe in God, right? Certain theological perspectives, he said, are trying to scare young people into church, talking about hell, and they like, it's hell out here. Like, what's hell gonna do to me that I haven't already experienced? Tupac said, I got shot 5 times, right? And so I think that there's a prophetic critique that the normative church, if you will, doesn't always want to hear, but that hip hop has to share. And then, of course, you also have the kind of holy hip hop movement, right? I teach this in my class that, gospel rap and gospel hip hop in its formation wasn't very popular because it was whack. As we say, it wasn't the best musically or lyrically. But you have some great hip hop artists now who are coming out of Christianity, but also out of Islam and other faith traditions who have powerful voices, and I think a prophetic voice.
Wow. Wow. That this hip hop and theology it seems like there's an intersection, but there's also a separation. Can you help us as ministers of the gospel, and many of our viewers are pastors, help us understand how to appreciate hip hop, because they laugh at me because I have to have the words on the captions on, because I can't catch them words. They laugh at me. So help us to how do we incorporate some of that into our churches?
I think the first thing that helps is to understand that there is no separation. If you can embrace that as a philosophical understanding, right, then you've done a lot in that regard. You have to make room. You have to make space. Those of us who are over 50, sometimes we got to get out of the way and trust the process. At Rise, we call worship the flow. Right? We are following the flow of Holy Spirit. We are following the flow of what God is doing in the midst of us. And, we might not always agree about what that is, but we have to make room and we have to make space for what that is. Because if we're honest, right, looking at past generations where we had this hard split between what was sacred and what was secular, right? We go on to church on Sundays and we praising God, and then we get in the car and we listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire, and It's Cheaper to Keep Her, and whoever else, right? And we enjoy, like, come on now, let's get false dichotomy. And it's our stuff. I'm talking about Black folks now, right? The blues is ours, jazz is ours, and gospel is influenced by those genres, right? Thomas Dorsey, all those folks started out in other genres of music, were originally ostracized by the church, like we did with the Clark sisters, like we did with Kirk Franklin, and on and on and on. And now Kirk Franklin is passé in that regard, right? And so it's trusting the young people and making room for the young people to express what's inside of them and express their relationship with the Creator, with the divine, with the holy, in the ways in which they want to and need to show up. And we're seeing more of it now, in terms of different, hip hop dance ministries in the church, the music, the dance. You really see it in worship arts. But I also think that it's making room for their leadership. I was always a believer of having youth represented on the committees and the councils of the church, right? So that we're conversant and not just talking at them, but knowing that they have innate leadership abilities in them now. And if we have them walk in apprenticeship with us, then we all grow together. We learn from them, they learn from us. And so, it's the liturgical ways in which we express ourselves. A lot of folks say, oh, young people have gotten away from the hymns of the church and they don't like, anthems and spirituals. At Rise, we had so many young people who didn't grow up in the church that shout out to Dr. Daniel Omatosho Black, who's our choir director, professor of English and African American Studies at Clark Atlanta University. He was teaching them songs by James Cleveland and Walter Hawkins and all that, and they loved it. They absolutely loved it because they didn't grow up on it, right? So it wasn't old to them. And then some who did grow up in the church, it was an important connection for them, right? And so, I think we need to get away from, or shying away from those traditions, because they're important, even as we make room for new and evolving expressions in worship, right? You all remember when praise team started at the church. I know I do. And folks were sitting in there with their arms crossed up. This ain't the deacon devotion. Right? But are we trying to make room for the generations that are coming alongside us and after us?
Oh, this is awesome, Dr. Handy. I know this was not one of the questions, but I want you to talk about the intersection between hip hop and womanist worship, because it seems like there is, if we believe that womanism is about inclusive of the whole community, hip hop would have to be a part of that. So where is that intersection between womanist worship and hip hop? You came to us because your name was spoken about womanist. Our sessions just loved on you about your womanist worship setting in Atlanta. But talk to us about that hip hop and womanist worship.
I keep getting on this two things, both and a way of expressing things. And so here I go again. On the one hand, I think womanism can speak to hip hop in very important ways. I teach a course called Hip Hop Origins, Religion, and Education. And in going back and looking at the origins of hip hop, there were a lot of women who were very important in hip hop's formation, who never got their names called, never got any credit, right? We talk about Nas, but we don't know that there would not be a Nas if there were a Roxanne Shante, right? And so, we know some of the names, MC Light, Queen Latifah, who I loved and grew up on, but there were so many other women in hip hop who never got their breakthrough, if you will, because they were women. And so I think that womanism can speak to hip hop to help it to become more inclusive. And there are some phenomenal hip hop scholars who are women, who are writing, who are telling those stories, and who are, expressing womanist, Black feminist hip hop, right? That said, I think that if you look at the intersections of womanism and hip hop, for me, the first word that popped into my head was embodiment. Mm. And the importance of celebrating, embracing, and making room for Black women's bodies, right? In the divine. Oh, watch out now. Yes, in the divine. Right? It's why we have all of the resistance to inclusive God language in our churches, because we are still struggling to see the feminine as divine, right? Or, and don't let me start talking about genders, plural, right? Because we say God is spirit, right? But God, we use this exclusively male God language. And so that's, of course, and, I'm just using that as a small example of what a womanist critique brings to worship. But beyond that, it's the embodiment. It's showing up body, mind, and spirit. We love the mind sometimes, and we definitely have the spirit. But can we bring our bodies to worship? And can we see women's bodies as sacred and as holy and as not something to be covered up and ashamed of? Right? Can worship be healing for Black women's bodies? Can we, in our movement, in our kinesthetic intelligence in worship. Not to say that just women bring that, because that's another critique. I think the church, in very problematic ways, has shut down men's bodies in worship, right? And have associated certain types of embodiment and demonstrative worship with homophobic denigrations of of male bodies, right? But it's the embodied. Hip hop is embodied, right? And it's not just, hip hop has originally 4 elements. Some say 5. We might be up to about 8 elements, right? But it is about these creatives showing up. I had a master's degree student this past semester who just graduated from the ITC, who wrote her master's thesis about Black women creatives who are creating alternative spaces for doing ministry outside of the church. So they're creating social media ministries and platforms, because the church will not make space for the very real talk that they're trying to have, right? About their bodies, about sex and sexuality, something that we historically have not talked about enough in the church, right? By the way, I enjoyed the conversation that you all had before. I'm not married, but I enjoyed the conversation. And I know my mama's on here listening, right? And she and my dad knew each other for 61 years. So I know she enjoyed every bit of that. But just to see Black women laughing and talking about relationships and, just being real in that kind of way. Why can't we bring that into the worship space?
Ooh.
Why can't we preach in alternative kinds of ways, right? Have discussions. Shout out to Dr. Irie Sessions, right? At the gathering, where from what I understand, she preaches and then they have conversations about the sermon after. Just making room to make real connections. I don't know if I'm answering the question fully or not, but it's important to not get caught up in homiletical prisons.
Ooh.
Get out of the homiletical box.
Wow.
Help us, Lord.
Did you say homiletical prisons?
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yes, that it has to be done this way in this amount of time.
Yeah.
This is how you start, this is how you finish, right? You got to go by the cross. And young folks are saying, we over it.
Oh.
Dr.
Handy. Dr. Handy, you have been so awesome.
Lord have mercy.
Oh Lord, I have loved that. We're gonna have to have you back, y'all. Put some stars in there and say, come back, Dr. Handy. We just got a little bit of what your research, your teaching, your who you are as a human being, bringing something different to the church in the way of rise, in the way of hip hop and theology, in the way I can't wait to see what happens when Dr. Grant's center moves to the next level. Oh my God, it's in good hands. I'm just
Thank you.
so grateful, and I just know, I just feel it in my bones that it's about to take off.
And I appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sorrow. Even though I'm friends with all of Divine Nine, my
That's
mama,
right, baby. We love that. We got deltas and zetas. You know they.
everybody.
But
Yeah,
see, they
hold on.
all the
I'm
time.
glad I'm glad you said that. I am so glad you said that because you are in a room. I was gonna let it slide, but since Dr. Handy brought it up, I was gonna let it slide. If you look behind you, you are in a room of a Delta, and it just blesses my soul.
There's a running joke amongst my friends, most of whom are Deltas. I mean,
Mine too, girlfriend.
my undergraduate mentor, all the way through all of my best girlfriends right now, they're all Deltas. And Dr. Lisa Allen McLaurin
Is one number one.
is like, we about to make you honorary Delta.
That's right. That's right.
I don't know if you guys can see this Delta fan
Oh,
back
no, that's
here.
what I was talking about, love. That's what I was talking about.
I'm in the home of a Delta, one of my favorite and best friends. Come on, Doc.
All right, but I see that we have reached our time on today.
That's right.
Wow.
I love all of my sisters, Greek and not Greek.
That's
Yeah.
right.
All
That's
good.
right. That's right.
It's all
All
fun.
right.
Dr. Virginia says, please tell your mommy hello.
Oh,
Will.
Yeah.
I'm
Thank you,
crying.
Dr. And Dr. Handy, thank you so much for being with us. Just hang around for us just a second backstage, if you will, for just a moment. But again, viewers, you know how we do this. I see some of you have already put in there that there needs to be a part two. But Dr. Handy, hit the heart buttons, hit the heart buttons. Dr. Handy is able to see your comments. Thank you so much for squeezing us into your very busy schedule. Just hang around for us backstage,
Thank
if you
you.
will.
Thank you all so much.
Her best friend will be here next week, right?
Yes, that's right. Ooh.
Okay.
Bless her heart.
And so with that, if you would share with our audience who will be our guest on next week.
Well, we'll get that part two of Womanist Liturgy from Reverend Dr. Lisa Allen McLaurin. It will be our guest. Another dynamic professor from the ITC. So I'm looking forward to it. She and I and Dr. Burns have a bunch of laughs together. So it's gonna be on and popping. I look forward to it.
All right. Thank you, viewing audience, for hanging in there with us, coming back with us after our 2-week break. We love you. And God, we bless God for you. And the Lord says the same. We'll see you on next week.
Same time, same place.
Yes.
Bye.